our political leaders used to be our business leaders. That's all flipped around because they were the business leaders were the community leaders because their businesses were also of the community. So they understood how everything worked and they had invested interest in making things as strong and vibrant as possible. I think it's a shame that a lot of the business community has felt that they need to distance themselves. You may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. And politicians will do things to your life and to your business if you're not involved stepping forward and making your own concerns heard. So you got to make your voice heard. The intersection of entrepreneurship and freedom, that's very exciting to me. I'm so passionate now about engaging with the people. Don't let other people define the parameters of your debate, of your conversation. Like, it's that simple. We're not, whatever they want to go on about or some distraction, you say, look, I'm not playing your games. I'm not being led down this garden path. We know why we're doing this. It's the right thing to do. We got to help these people out.
Welcome to the Thought Leader Revolution with Nikki Ballou. Join the revolution. There's never been a better time in history to speak your truth, find your freedom, and make your fortune. Each week, we interview the world's top thought leaders and learn the secrets of how they built a 6 to 7 figure practice. This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.
Welcome to another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. I'm your host, Nikki Ballou, and boy, do we have an exciting guest lined up for you today. Today's guest is former City of Toronto mayoralty candidate, champion of freedom, and a longtime journalist, the one, the only, the legendary Anthony Furey. Welcome to the show, Anthony.
Hey, great to be here, Nikki. What an introduction. Thank you, sir.
Great to have you here. So, Anthony, the Thought Leader Revolution is a show that's aimed at entrepreneurs and freedom lovers. The folks who listen to this show are folks who are seekers. They want to make their lives better. They want to make their businesses better. They want to make the society we live in better. So we usually bring business people onto the show, but from time to time, I also bring those that I consider to be the champions of freedom onto the show. And I see you in that light because I think you've got an important and powerful message to share with people. And personally, I got a show. I want to get to know you. So this is a great way for me to have a conversation with you. So tell us your backstory. How did you get to be the great Anthony Furey?
Oh, geez, my backstory. Well, as you mentioned, Nikki, I was in media for many years, for about 15 years. I was primarily at the Sun Post media papers as a columnist there and a senior editor and hosting our flagship podcast. Along the way, I also hosted some television programs, some radio shows. I got my start when I was a teenager, and I guess early 20s, more in arts journalism. I was very interested in the arts and culture world, but that kind of migrated me into doing other media work related to politics. I got more politically involved, politically minded. And the other year, yes, I did sort of upend my life in a very positive way and decided to run for mayor of Toronto. I'm not the current mayor, so I'm not responsible for all the problems that are plaguing our streets right now, but it was a great honor to be one of the front runners in that race and put forward positive change. And I'm doing a number of exciting, interesting things right now. And what you say, the intersection of entrepreneurship and freedom, that's very exciting to me.
I agree with you. It is very, very exciting. So what made you decide to throw your hat in the ring and run for mayor?
Well, Nikki, I'd always been writing and doing commentary and radio stuff, mostly on federal politics, although talking about all the issues. But I live in Toronto. I raised 3 small children in Toronto. We own real estate here. We grew up here, my wife and I. This is our city. This is our town. We know it. We love it. And yet in the couple years before the mayor's race, we grew tired of people coming up to us on the street, people we pass and socialize with, whether it's folks we've known for many years or other parents we were just meeting in the playground who were saying, we're not feeling it in Toronto anymore. We're going to go find work elsewhere. We're going to move up to Collingwood or head to Alberta or move down to Florida to seek a better life for ourselves, for our kids. There were a lot of things they were frustrated about. So many parents saying, we never used to see needles in the playground in this part of town, out in the suburbs or what have you. Now we do. It shouldn't be this way. And Nikki, the fact that things were getting so bad on a number of fronts, economics, public safety, the general sense of traffic, infrastructure can't move around anymore. It was so disheartening to us as people who know this city, who grew up here and who love it. And we want our children to feel like they can stay in Toronto, but that was getting lost there. And of course, you have older generations, baby boomers, who say, well, we're retired. We have no reason to be here anymore, and we just can't stand it. We're getting out of here. I mean, it's really awful. And I knew that you couldn't share the wealth if you couldn't first grow the wealth. I mean, how are we going to have all these programs? How are we going to fund things? How are we going to hire more police officers if everybody just wants out of here because of all these challenges? And, I'd been the guy who'd been on radio saying, I have a better idea for the past 10 years. And I thought, well, it's time to actually put those thoughts into action and propose them to the good people of the city, to the electorate. And that's why I ran. It was an amazing experience. I loved every minute of it. And, don't count me out for future politics, because I'm so passionate now about engaging with the people.
I'm thrilled to hear that. And the person who won the last election, Olivia Chow, if anything, has made things worse, not better. Since she's come into power, crime has risen pretty dramatically, and it was pretty high when she got into power at the beginning. But in the short time that she's been in power, she's made it worse. Driving in Toronto is becoming a nightmare. There are all these ridiculous bike lanes that are out in the city, and yet 7 months out of the year, nobody uses them. And I mean nobody. They're there. There's concrete on the streets. Bikes aren't being used. Even in the summer months, the usage of these lanes is very limited. So it doesn't make sense. It seems to be like an ideologically driven thing to have these bike lanes. It's not really about practicality or actually helping a whole ton of people. They're starting to take away parking spots in the city for Cafe Toronto, for charging electric cars, while sales of electric cars are starting to flatten out and fewer people are using them. It just seems that this is ideologically driven, and it's driven by a desire on the part of the mayor and people on city council to lord it over the peons rather than actually make their lives better. So if anything, the need for someone like you, as a common sense fellow, to come and run and take over the city is greater than ever. But how are you going to break through the logjam of getting the word out so that most people actually know what your ideas are? Because it's my belief that if more people knew what your ideas were, you would have won the race. And there seemed to have been a deliberate attempt on the part of the legacy media to silence you, to not give you fair coverage and not give your ideas fair coverage. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you're right. And what's so unfortunate or tragic comic was that, I worked in the media for many years, so I knew some of these people. They were my acquaintances. So it's like, guys, what gives? This is so unfortunate. You're right, but we broke through that ceiling that they tried to place on us, and things were surging towards the end and getting the word out. And a lot of people were responding very positively. Unfortunately, I wasn't successful. And look, you're right. Olivia Chow, she's a nice lady. I meet her in person, but I think the bottom line is the ideology, the more sort of left-wing, quasi-socialist perspective. It's not going to work anymore. People are saying, really all across North America, cities are shifting in another direction because crime is getting worse, transportation is getting worse. Nikki, you nailed it on the bike lane issue. I got nothing against cycling. I go out and do it myself all the time. And I grew up actually bicycling throughout the streets of Toronto when I was a teenager, and there weren't bike lanes then. So what's the problem? Like, you don't actually need them. And it's funny, some of the biggest, the largest bike lanes in the city, there's one on Danforth. I live near there, and I occasionally actually use the Danforth bike lane when it logistically makes sense for me. And I'm the only one on it. And it's kind of funny. I'm on this bike and I go, wow, I've got my own lane just for me. But I'd like to think that I'm mature enough to acknowledge that that's not how society works. There shouldn't be a lane just for me. It's funny. Some of the radical bike lane activists, they say, there's the guy who hates bikes. I go, but I use some of these bike lanes. I just don't think they should necessarily exist because it just doesn't work. The needs of the few don't outweigh the needs of the many. The ideology is interesting, Nikki, because there are bike lanes on Yonge Street and Bloor Street, which, as you know, are sort of it's the main XY axis of Toronto. And my apologies to my friends in other cities in Canada, but then arguably like the major two streets in all of Canada from a city perspective. Those streets are now a single lane. But you go to New York, you go to London, Paris, they have bike lanes on many streets, but they're not one lane roads. How embarrassing is it? And what sort of a sign are we sending to the business community, to entrepreneurs, to just regular families that we don't take these roads seriously enough that they can be any more than one lane anymore? It's really an ideology designed to your point, to tell the peons how to live. My view of politics and government, Nikki, is not, okay, I'm going to determine how people should live their lives. I'm going to force it upon you. But what can I do to facilitate people's pursuit of happiness, pursuit of the good life, whatever that may be?
I love what I'm hearing. And I think it's very important that you and voices like you start to be in the ascendant in the city of Toronto, and frankly, in all major cities, not just in Canada, but in North America and in the Western world. So how do we make sure that we defeat people like Olivia Chow? I live in the beaches in Toronto. My counselor is a fellow named Brad Bradford. I've met him. He's a nice enough guy, but he's ideologically in favor of these bike lanes. He's ideologically in favor of these electric car charging stations that nobody uses. How do we get rid of these people? How do we vote them out of office and make sure that they never can come back? Because the left, they play for keeps. These guys go after you. Politics is a blood sport to them. They don't care about who gets damaged along the way as long as they keep power. So how does a nice man like Anthony Furey beat these guys?
Well, I think you're right that things are shifting. When we talk about the need for change all across North America, it's happening. You see in the polls, Pierre Poilievre is very successful, very popular right now, probably going to become prime minister with majority. Justin Trudeau, not so much. And you can give a lot of credit to Pierre Poilievre for that, for sure. But I also think it's a broader cyclical change. You know, we've seen in past decades the decline of great North American cities. In the 80s, a lot of cities were in shambles. People had to come in and turn them around. And that was because socialist ideology was causing problems, and it just didn't cut it. We're now in that cyclical period where I know people are actually looking for better solutions. And I think the solutions that we're talking about, these more, we can put labels on them, conservative, center right, whatever, but the basic ideas, I think that's what people want right now, what they're kind of calling out for, and if they can get greater exposure to them. And I think they're the optimistic ideas, Nikki, to be honest, because people say, oh, we just got to have these bike lanes everywhere. There's no way we can get traffic moving. No, we can get things moving. Oh, we just have to have real 10% tax increases. There's no other way to do it. No, we can actually manage the budget. Oh, we just got to give out free fentanyl and just let these people roam about in the streets and stab each other. No, we can make our families safe, and we can help these people recover and get on with their lives. I think the socialist perspective is actually a very negative downward spiral one, and it's upsetting families. I think we have the positive solutions.
So how do you fight back against these people who are going to come at you really hard, call you names, say that you're evil? Ist, you're one of the ists. I call it the ist. They're just going to pick the ist of the day. You know, racist, sexist, ableist, ageist, whatever the heck they can try to make stick. How are you going to fight back against that? I'm really curious, because to me that's a big part of showing the world that, hey, these guys are crazy. And I'd love to see people like you win. But how do you beat these guys when they come at you that hard?
Well, you just buckle up and rock and roll. And those things say more about them than they do about you, because you know what you're trying to accomplish. You know who you are. You know what's true to your heart, and you're doing things to make people's lives better. So it gets pretty sad when they start name calling. And I think people are seeing through that now. We've seen in some recent weeks, members of the Trudeau Liberal government are saying some really bizarre things, and I don't think people are buying it. They really just want to vilify rather than talk about their own solutions. People see right through it. As you know, Nikki, I was in media for many years. Twitter's been around for a long time. I'm used to people calling me names, and you just got to let it be water off a duck's back. There's always going to be, and there's 40 million people in Canada. If 200 people say a mean tweet at you, that's nothing. That's a drop. Everybody's voice matters, but at the same time, if you have 200 people swearing obscenities at you, they're probably just lunatics, and just live your life. You know who you are. That's a very good point. There is a political pundit on Fox News. His name is Jesse Waters, and a few years ago, I was writing a book. I've written a couple of books with an American political pundit by the name of Wayne Allen Root, speaking out against cancel culture. And I'll love to meet you one day. It sounds like you live in the East End like me. I'll meet you for coffee one day, and I'll sign the books and give them to you, because I think you'd enjoy them. But
while I was writing the book and I was doing the research, I was listening to Jesse Waters talk about the rise of cancel culture. And I was writing about cancel culture. And he said, the reason cancel culture in this day and age, back then it was, I think, 2021, 2022, is taking root is because these crazy people that are writing these crazy notes to CEOs, they've always been around. They used to write letters to the CEO, but the CEO's gatekeepers would intercept the letters and the CEO would never see them. So they didn't know, they just went about their merry way. But today there's Twitter, there's social media. They can tag the CEO and the CEO sees these crazy people's musings. And then they've got people in their HR department who are usually not very mature or experienced people and say, oh my God, you got to do something about this. So go ahead and cancel that. So the CEOs freak out and they went and cancel things. And Jesse Waters said that if you just, like you said, treat it like it's water off a duck's back, you're going to win. And I also interviewed Jen Say, who's the former president of Levi's. She's a former nationally ranked gymnast. She became the president of Levi's. She was a traditionally, left of center executive, San Francisco headquarters of Levi's. She was on track to be the first female CEO of Levi's. And then because of COVID and she being against school lockdowns, they basically kicked her out. And she started to speak up and she said, it's the fear in the front office of many corporations that's driving cancel culture, that's driving people to say, oh, no, we can't have this person be someone we endorse, blah, blah, blah. But people are starting to wise up, as you said, and they're starting to push back. And I think that's very heartening. I would love to see in the next election, you win Toronto's mayoralty election, you become our next mayor, because I think the policies that you talk about are all common sense. I don't think they're right or left. I think they're really things that make people's lives better. And I'm just wondering what your comments are on that.
No, thank you so much for that, Nikki. And it's a good point, the Jesse Waters stuff that you bring up. One of the things when you get out there, and one of the challenges with the COVID lockdowns is we lost our sort of meaningful person-to-person connections, because on Twitter or whatnot, whatever the apps are now, all the kids have all these newfangled things. I don't even know what they are, but it's so easy to just write, swear words at people and be abusive and everything. But, real face-to-face, people are typically not like that. And running for office, interesting thing about that is you go around and you just knock on a person's door. And it could be anybody. It could be a person who actually is one of those people who writes angry things at you on Twitter. You have no clue who it is. And you're saying, hey, nice to meet you. And you're shaking hands and you see them and their kids and you talk about the issues. And I had an overwhelmingly positive experience. People aren't rude. They're just decent, regular folks. Some of them, they have all sorts of different views. Some of them are very normal. Others are totally out there loopy and whatnot. But you meet them where they're at their door. And you go, man, I wish these people well. They're working hard. Most of them are law abiding. They're following the rules. And you see their kids. And you go, I hope these kids do well. And you come out more optimistic than you do than in this sort of Twitterverse, where, to your point, Nikki, there's a lot of sort of, not even a lot, but just this critical mass of angry people. And it's odd that those CEOs and HR departments mistook that for accurate market research. They thought it was a proper sampling of people when it's not. It's just this vocal minority of total lunatics. So, don't let the lunatics frame the debate anymore. I know most folks don't want bike lanes absolutely everywhere. Most folks are open to the idea that let's get these people off of drugs rather than just throwing free fentanyl at them that the taxpayer pays at. So absolutely, we've got to sort of gauge what is normalcy, and what these sort of far left characters are going on about. That ain't normal.
No, it ain't normal. It ain't normal at all. And I think what you said would make a great title for a book. Don't let the lunatics frame the debate anymore. Because that's what's happened in Canada since the rise of Justin Trudeau back in 2015, is he gave permission to the lunatic fringe to step forward and start to try to convince the rest of us that they're a majority, and they're not even a minority. They're a tiny, minuscule portion of the population. The things that they are advocating are things that horrify most people. And all we need to do is find a way to have ideas like yours. ideas like Pierre Poilievre's be more widely known. And the more people know about them, the more people are attracted to them, the more people want to vote for this. Pierre Poilievre has done a fantastic job of going out there, framing the terms of the debate, and fighting back against the crazies in the media. I mean, I love that little clip of him eating the apple with that journalist who's trying to gaslight him. And he just absolutely demolished that guy and showed people that, hey, he's a normal guy, and the people that are running against him, the people that are arrayed against him, because that was a journalist, not even a politician, are not. And they just want to stay in power so they can perpetuate the craziness. And people are going, screw that, forget that. Let's vote for some normal people. And you're in the same mold. You're a Pierre Poilievre at the municipal level. And that's why I was excited about speaking with you.
Oh, thanks, Nikki. Yeah, what you said there was so important. And I wish more people could appreciate the profoundness of the idea of don't let other people define the parameters of your debate, of your conversation. You say, let's just say, we're going to get these people off of drugs. We're not giving out free fentanyl. And then to your point, they say, oh, well, actually, I think you're racist because blah, blah, blah. No, we're going to get them off drugs. We're getting them off drugs. Like, it's that simple. We're not, whatever they want to go on about or some distraction, you say, look, I'm not playing your games. I'm not being led down this garden path. We know why we're doing this. It's the right thing to do. We got to help these people out. We're getting them off of drugs. And we just keep focused on the vision that we have rather than being dragged down into some weird little toxic accusatory debate that they want to do. And you're right, Pierre does a great job of not doing that. And in fairness to a lot of these, far left politicians, they do an excellent job at that. They speak about things within their own little rules of engagement. They don't go down other people's train. And I think that's one reason why they did manage to take things in their direction in recent years. I'll also say what you find engaging with the regular voter is most people don't follow politics in the off season, by which I mean they're not following it every day because they're just busy. They're watching the soccer game. They're taking the kids to school. They're doing all of that stuff. They're fixing up the house, and they just see a little bit here and there, and they go, okay, that Trudeau guy, he actually seems not too bad. I'll give him a shot. And then they vote for him, and it takes them a little while to go, this isn't what I thought. He's not doing what he said, or, he's really, things are worse off than they were a few years ago. So it sometimes takes cycles because, people are not necessarily as engaged in the issues as some of us are who follow this day to day. So I think that's kind of what we're experiencing as well here.
I think you're right. People don't follow politics in the off season. That's bang on. And Trudeau, let's face it, he had a famous last name, still has a famous last name. Yeah. He's a well-dressed, good-looking, well-spoken man. You got to give him credit for all of that. And when he first ran, for the most part, he sounded moderate. He didn't sound like a crazy left-wing loon. Sounded really moderate. He sounded like he was maybe slightly to the left of Paul Martin, but not NDP crazy to the left, right? Then he got into office. He makes the NDP look right-wing, for crying out loud. Like Ed Broadbent is more right-wing than Justin Trudeau, And that's part of what I think a lot of people are upset with him for, because they feel hoodwinked. They feel like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And that's why he's unlikely to be reelected. I actually don't think he's even going to win his own seat if he decides to run.
Yeah, and these things come in cycles. I mean, Stephen Harper had been in power for about 10 years, and people just get tired of seeing the same guy on television telling them, what they're going to do and taking their tax money and so forth. I mean, in America, I think the idea of, 8 years, that's all you get there for president. It's kind of almost it's sort of a good chunk of time there. So you go, they've maybe got something figured out. Whereas here, after about 8 years, we kind of naturally want to throw the bums out anyway. So I think Trudeau benefited from that. And now he's coming up for 10 years and people, they're just tired of him. I don't think anything that Trudeau can do is going to change opinions. I mean, maybe a percentage point here or there, but it's really caked in now. People just say, I'm done with it. There was a time, Nikki, as you know, when people gave Trudeau the benefit of the doubt, and now it's the opposite. I think anything he says, it just kind of turns to poison. It's like they say in Hollywood, he's box office poison.
He is box office poison. I agree. That's well said. I'm friends with David Menzies of Rebel News, and David, I'm originally from Iran, and David was in Richmond Hill at the 4th anniversary of the shooting of the Ukrainian jetliner, on which many Canadian Iranian citizens were and perished as a result of that. And he attempted to scrum Christian Friedland. And an RCMP goon stepped in front of him, shoulder tackled him, and said, "Hey, you assaulted me," which is hilarious if you watch the tape. They arrested him. They later released him. But since then, he's been arrested twice by Toronto police. And I've heard rumors from people I know on the inside that this is at the express orders of Olivia Chow, that she has told the police to find a reason to arrest this guy. And they didn't just release him. He's actually appeared before a justice of the peace, and now they're charging him with some serious crimes. Those charges are not going to stick, but nonetheless, part of why I don't have a lot of sympathy for anybody on the left is because of this sort of tactic. Coming from Iran, growing up, they did this to honest journalists in Iran. They would go after people that were against the regime and throw them in jail, beat them up, shoot them, kill them even. And we came to Canada because we believed that couldn't happen here. And when I saw that happen just to one journalist, David Menzies, a credentialed journalist, like it or not, if you're on the left, he's a credentialed journalist, attempting to practice journalism, that is unacceptable to me. And to me, that's why not one progressive deserves to be in power, even for 1 nanosecond. And Olivia Chow may have at one point been a nice person, but she said nothing to speak out against what happened to David Menzies and journalists like him. So to me, silence is culpability on this issue. On issues of freedom of the press, silence is culpability, and the progressives are very silent on this issue. That's why I think it's very important that your message gets out, that the message of people like Pierre Poilievre gets out, and that we elect you as mayor, Pierre Poilievre as prime minister. And honestly, across Canada, I'd like to see every major municipality, every major province be in the hands of common sense individuals who aren't necessarily ideological, but are against the ideology of the crazy progressive left. That's very important from my point of view.
No, a very good point. And things were trending a little bit in that direction. 2 recent mayoral elections where the more radical left thought they had it in the bag. In British Columbia and Vancouver, Ken Sim is someone who's kind of against the radical left, and he won. And they thought that the NDP incumbent mayor was going to win. He did not. In Ottawa, Mark Sutcliffe, who had been a past sort of media colleague of mine, he's more sort of a center of the road guy, but definitely rejecting of the more radical stuff. He beat out the NDP candidate, and people were not expecting. It was a shock victory. We were trying to replicate similar things here in Toronto, but I do think the tone was shifting and all of that. Nikki, really powerful what you said about coming from Iran, seeing similar things. I have so much respect and time for people who, coming from Iran, or as you know, a lot of people from Eastern Europe, who in recent years have said, well, hold on a second, we're the canary in the coal mine. We are concerned. We are beginning to see similar things that we saw there, or was the cause for us coming here, or our parents coming here. And guys, pay attention and listen to us, heed our warning. And I think those voices from those communities are incredibly important, because as you would understand better than I do, these things, sometimes they happen in a day with like a day's worth of revolution, but other times it's a drip, and they happen more slowly, and our freedoms are eroded that way. And I think that second one is definitely what we're seeing here, drip by drip.
So, Anthony, what do you say to Toronto business owners? Because I think they need to be involved, not just at the level of voting or maybe even donating some money, but they need to be involved with their voices. What do you say to them? What's your message to them? What do you want them to do to help get rid of this scourge of socialism that's infected our city?
Get in the game. You're totally right, Nikki. They need to get in the game. And I've had a number of great meetings with impressive business owners who have confided in me that they've never really been that involved in politics. They either just weren't interested in it, or they figured other people took care of it, or they even thought they were kind of above it. They thought it was kind of beneath them or something. And they're now coming around to realize, well, hold on a second. Actually, things are happening in this city that's making it very difficult for them to just do their business. You'll have partners coming in, or potential clients coming in from other cities, and they go, I can't move around in Toronto. Employees are demanding extra pay because the rent is so out of control, or because they just can't travel, they can't get around. And, you can't blame people for trying to get every extra buck they can because of how difficult it is. People just saying the streets are so dirty, they don't feel comfortable. And then if you're doing anything that involves the movement of goods, well, good luck with that, because you can't move things around anymore. And my message to those business owners who weren't sure where they should be involved: you may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. And politicians will do things to your life and to your business if you're not involved, stepping forward and making your own concerns heard. So you got to make your voice heard.
Traditionally in England, municipal politics hundreds of years ago involved aldermen, and aldermen were selected from the ranks of the business community. It was business owners with a stake in the city that were considered to be wise enough, mature enough, and have enough of a stake and interest in the success of that city to be the only ones that could be entrusted with running that city. And I got to say, there's a lot of wisdom in that sort of thinking. And I think business owners need to understand that history and get involved in the running of their communities and their cities, because if they don't, as you said, you may not be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you, and politics is going to get right in your face. And there's not a thing you can do about it if you try to just sit back silently and hunker down until the storm passes, because the storm isn't passing. The storm is targeting you, and it's going to hit you until you hit it back.
Absolutely. And on the socialist side of things, they're very involved in the game. They're very professional. They're very organized, in part because they're not busy running their own businesses, because they don't have businesses to run. They're not doing that. And that's a major disadvantage to the business community. And that sort of paradigm you put up there, Nikki, that our political leaders used to be our business leaders, that's all flipped around, because they were the business leaders were the community leaders, because their businesses were also of the community. So they understood how everything worked, and they had invested interest in making things as strong and vibrant as possible. I think it's a shame that a lot of the business community has felt that they need to distance themselves. I also think another thing that's a bit of a shame is we have now moved away from viewing municipal politics as that important. And I think because of media, and because Justin Trudeau's on television every day, and Pierre Poilievre is as well, and we can have a national conversation about that, we look at federal politics as sort of the most important, and then provincial as there, and then municipal down below. And I say, well, hold on a second. All politics is local. This is our daily lives. And there was a time historically, you referenced England a couple hundred years ago, back in Athens and all that stuff Aristotle's writing about, there are no countries. They're talking about city-states. That was what politics was, the city-state. So I think we need to see the honor and the glory in municipal politics, and how meaningful it is and impactful to our daily lives. Sure, you're not going to get on national television every day as the mayor of Toronto or the mayor of LA or New York. That's up to, Biden and Trudeau and Trump and everyone. But you're still doing something very noble in terms of our daily lives, and important and key.
I agree wholeheartedly. Municipal politics is the most important politics for people to pay attention to, because it affects your day-to-day life a heck of a lot more than anything provincially or anything federally. And it's a chance for you to get involved. You can actually go meet your city councilor and give him or her an earful if that's something you want to do and you think needs to be done. And you could even decide to get involved and run municipally yourself. You could run for city council. You could, if you don't want to run, you could support someone who's running, and you could do everything in your power to get rid of the people that are trying to rule you. They're trying to impose these petty tyrannies on you. Because that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. They're trying to impose petty tyrannies on the rest of us. And I'm heartened to see champions for freedom like you step forward. We need more champions for freedom to step forward. And Anthony, whatever I can do to help you win next time, count me in.
Oh, that's so kind of you to say. Thanks so much, Nikki. And I will add, it also extends to the school board level. For years, I think for decades, people stopped being all that involved in the schools and the school boards But the sort of more radical people said, oh, great, nobody cares about this, so we're going to go in and we're going to take this over. And now I believe we're seeing a bit of a revival of just, regular, decent, middle-class people say, no, we're going to step forward and we're going to take back our community associations. We're going to take back our school boards, and we're going to be more involved, because obviously kids being the future, it's important that we normalize so much of, we bring things back to normalcy, because there's a lot of stuff that so many people are not happy about. As the parent of three small kids at the school system, I'm definitely concerned.
I'm very concerned myself. I mean, my sons are 16 and 18. And I got to tell you, I'm a father who looks at what's happening to the children of other parents, and I'm horrified. When did it become okay to introduce sexual material to little kids under the age of 8? When is that okay in anyone's book? Like, I'm sorry, the only people who are in favor of that are child predators, And for us to pretend there's something cool about this, no, it's not good. And I hope that more and more people will step forward and run for school boards and get rid of these policies. I got nothing against gay people whatsoever. Growing up, my best friend came out to me as gay when I was a teenager, and it was difficult for him, and it was difficult for me because I knew he was gay. He just didn't want to tell me because he was afraid of my reaction, and I felt awkward about it. I mean, we're talking about the 80s back then. And, I was thrilled that he finally came out. I said, look, man, you're my best buddy. It's all good. I respect you. You respect me. That's what matters. There's a fine line between respecting somebody and forcing an ideology down people's throats. It's a fine line.
And when it comes to the school board issues, and you're talking about the young children, the Toronto School Board sent home these surveys the other year, and my son, who was 8 at the time, he got that question, he got that survey, and they ask, "Oh, are you transgender?" And they go so far as asking, "Do you know what binding and tucking are?" And binding is, I guess, when I know it's when a girl wants to hide her breasts, so she really binds it really hard to flatten them. And then tucking is when you try and hide your male genitals, so you don't see them anymore. You don't look like you're male anymore. You go, why? And to your point, Nikki, why are you asking an 8-year-old about all of this? And then, to your point about our gay and lesbian friends, there's many middle-class gay and lesbian parents who say to me, whoa, like that has nothing to do with me. I don't want that stuff being taught to kids. I'm not trying to talk to kids about that stuff. So, and again, to your point, I may stand up against that and people want to call you a bunch of names, but it's like, whoa, hold on. We got like everybody on board here acknowledging this is a weird thing and we can scale this back. That was my experience. All religions, all walks of life, gay and lesbian as well. They're all like, this is weird. Like we're not standing up for this. So that's where we just have to sort of buckle up and move forward. And because we know what we're trying to do here and we know it's right for everybody.
Listen, Canada is a free country. We've always been a free country. We believe in tolerance. Anybody can choose to be who they want to be as long as they're an adult, right? As long as they're an adult, they can choose to be who they want to be. Right. For a ideologically driven group of crazy people to try to force their ideology on our kids through our school system, that's a non-starter. That's a complete non-starter as far as I'm concerned. And it should be a non-starter. So that's the long and the short of it from my point of view. And as I said, I'm grateful that you're doing what you're doing. Thanks for coming on the show today. I like to end off each and every show by asking 2 specific questions of you. The first one is, if someone wants to find out more about you, what you're up to, how they might be able to get involved in some of the causes that are important to you or a future political run, what's the best way?
Oh, great. Thanks, Nikki. Yeah, my website is www.furey.ca. That's Furey, www.furey.ca. So that's the best place.
Okay, great. So that's simple enough. And then my second question is, we end off each show by asking you, as our guest expert, what are your top 3, what we call expert action steps? These are your best pieces of life advice for our listener in a bullet point form that'll help them take their life, their fulfillment, their success to the next level. So what say you?
Wow. Okay. I wish I would have done my homework in advance, but I think I can cycle back to some of the things that we were already discussing, which are so key to me, which is that if you know why you're doing what you're doing, then you be true to yourself and you barrel forward and don't let yourself be boxed in by other people's rules. That is a key one. I think another one is that, to be true to yourself means that you also have to get out there more with what you're doing. Like I said, you may not be interested in politics. Politics is interested in you. So get out there with your passion, your vision, meet people, talk to people, and you'll find the water is warmer sometimes than you may initially think. And there's a lot of great connections that can happen from just getting out there. And I think the third, and this is related to this, is to just do stuff. When we talked about people getting involved in their communities, getting involved in politics, starting a business, writing that book you always plan to write, whatever it is, just do it. Time is passing you by, but the good news is there's usually more of it. So go and knuckle down and do the thing you're passionate about.
These are 3 great expert action steps. Yeah, be true to you, go forward toward the things that matter to you, and then get out there and actually let people know what your passion's all about. That's important, whether you have a business, whether you're involved in politics or anything else. And then take action. Do stuff, as you put it. Do stuff. I like it. I like it a lot. I think that's supercalifragilistic fantastic.
Awesome.
Anthony Furey, really great to get to know you. You're an awesome dude. Thanks for taking the time to come and enlighten me with what matters to you. I learned a lot. And please do come back on the show, especially as the next round of municipal elections come around. And in the meantime, like I said, let me know what I can do to help, because your voice is needed. And I'd like to see you be the next mayor of Toronto. And I found out about you when I was listening to Jordan Peterson. And I'm a big fan of his, and he's a very deep thinker, and I think one of the true thought leaders in our world today.
Yeah.
And someone asked him, so there's an election happening in your city in Toronto. He said, yes. And I endorse Anthony Furey as our next mayor. And at the time, I didn't know a whole lot about you. And I said, okay, if Jordan Peterson thinks this dude makes a good mayor, I better go find out more about him. Yeah. So I did. I started to, look for some of the interviews you'd done and read some of your policy positions. And I said, yep, he's the right guy. I'm voting for him. So I went to all my clients, all my business owner friends who are from Toronto, and I said, guys, Anthony Furey, he's the guy you want to vote for, and go check him out. And it was a wonderful thing to find out that there's actually a common sense person running for office. Sorry that you didn't make it in last time. But I'm confident that you can make it in next time. So God bless you.
It's kind of you to say, Nikki. Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, you bet. And that wraps up another exciting episode of the podcast, The Thought Leader Revolution. To find out more about today's guest, the one and only Anthony Furey, go to his website, Furey, Furey.ca, or go to the show notes at thethoughtleaderrevolution.com, or wherever you happen to listen to this episode, be it iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Audible, or what have you. And if you enjoyed the episode and you've got a friend that you think would enjoy the types of messages that were shared in this episode, please either share one of the clips that we put out on social media or share the entire episode with them. Because the way that we grow, the way that we get to touch more people's lives is through you. Without your help, we can't do it. Until next time, goodbye.
This episode has been brought to you by eCircleAcademy.com, the proven system to add 6 to 7 figures a year to your thought leader practice.